Bats, blood, tears. Ozzy Osbourne spent his life walking the line between legend and madness. He bit the head off a bat, he mumbled through a reality show, and he invented heavy metal. I was there, in Birmingham, his hometown, for his final concert just 2 weeks before his death. So who was he really? The devil everyone feared? Or the most misunderstood genius in rock history?
We're talking with the one and only
Madman,
Prince of Darkness.
What?
Ozzy
Osbourne.
When I heard about Back to the Beginning, the final Ozzy and Black Sabbath concert, I knew I had to be there. So I took a cheap flight to Birmingham, Ozzy's hometown, and I attended the most important concert in the last 30 years. Let me show you what it was like and also talk about Ozzy's life and career. John Michael Osbourne was born in Birmingham in 1948 into a poor working-class family. He wasn't a genius in school. In fact, he didn't care much for anything except the Beatles, his favorite band, the group that made him believe that maybe, somehow, someday, he could be on a stage too. He worked factory jobs. He even landed in jail for stealing clothes and a television. But eventually he scraped together enough for some equipment and put up a now famous ad in a music shop. That ad connected him with the people who'd become his lifelong bandmates. Drummer Bill Ward, bassist Geezer Butler, and guitarist Tony Iommi, a left-handed player who was missing the tips of 2 fingers. To keep playing without pain, Iommi tuned his guitar down so the strings were looser, not realizing he just invented an entirely new sound, and with it, an entirely new genre of music, heavy metal.
And it was just something I developed over that period, and then it enabled me to be able to play.
The band went through a few names, but then, inspired by an Italian horror movie called Black Sabbath, they found one that stuck, and as the saying goes, the rest is history. They thought they were just writing songs about nightmares and horror imagery. Religion wasn't even on their minds, but the music was so dark, so heavy, that people started calling it satanic. That image would haunt Ozzy for the rest of his life, but more on that in the next chapter. Their very first concert was at the Crown, a small Birmingham pub with bad acoustics and cheap beer. So after flying to Birmingham, we knew that was the first place we needed to check out. On the way there, we had to stop at the Black Sabbath mural, right by the train station. It was painted recently by an artist called Mr. Mural, and it's already become a pilgrimage site. Fans from all over the world come here to take photos and see the signatures of the 4 legends. And right next to it, in the train station, stands something unexpected. Ozzy. Not the man, but a massive mechanical bull, originally built for the 2022 Commonwealth Games. Locals loved it so much, they voted to keep it permanently and name it Ozzy, in honor of Birmingham's most famous son. Both the mural and the bull are just steps away from the Crown, the pub where it all began. Black Sabbath played their very first gig. Nobody in the audience knew they were witnessing the birth of heavy metal. To them, it was just another loud, strange local band. But for Ozzy, it was already the dream come true. In his mind, having a band, playing in a pub, and getting free beer was the peak of a career. He would have been perfectly happy if it had ended there. What he didn't know was that things were about to escalate, fast. Ozzy Osbourne was never a Satanist. In fact, he remained religious his entire life, from childhood until his final days. But he also never rushed to deny the rumors when they first appeared. Maybe he understood that controversy could make him famous, and he wasn't wrong.
You really started this whole business of being a big enemy of the religious right, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I mean, I gave them a reason to be, you know. I mean, they used to follow me around everywhere, especially, mainly in America, though, nowhere else in the world.
Black Sabbath sang about war, demons, witchcraft, everything dark but deeply human. They weren't writing rituals, they were writing about fear, about nightmares, about the feelings you don't say out loud but everyone has. And in the 1970s, that was enough to terrify the world. When they released their song Black Sabbath with that slow, menacing riff and lyrics like, "What is this that stands before me, figure in black which points at me?" The press went into a frenzy. The church condemned them, and the fans, they loved it even more. What most people didn't know is that the song came from Geezer Butler's hallucination. After reading a book on magic, he woke up in the night and thought he saw a dark figure at the foot of his bed. The song was about panic and terror, not an occult invocation. Or how about War Pigs, with the line, "Generals gathered in their masses, just like witches at black masses." It was accused of Satanism and even of being pro-war, which is absurd. Sharon Osbourne recently had to explain the lyrics again online.
People have said that this song is a war song. It's an anti-war song.
As it often happens, once people pick their conclusion, nothing will change their minds. That thought crossed my mind as I walked to another sacred site for Sabbath fans, the Black Sabbath Bridge, home to the famous bench carved with portraits of all 4 band members.
And it's become a tourist attraction because people go and sit and have their picture taken to whichever member of Black Sabbath they want. Did you ever think at any time that in your hometown there would be a bench with huge pictures of Black Sabbath on?
Never. I mean, it's fantastic.
The walk from the city center takes you along a canal that almost feels like a dark version of Venice after decades of rain and industrial depression. January 20th, 1982. By then, Ozzy had already started his solo career after being fired from Black Sabbath. He was touring the US with his band and his legendary guitarist Randy Rhoads, who would tragically die just months later. But before that, came the incident that cemented Ozzy's reputation forever, either as a mad genius or simply mad. At a show in Des Moines, Iowa, Slipknot's hometown, a 17-year-old kid threw a dead bat on stage thinking Ozzy would be amused. Ozzy, convinced it was a rubber toy, picked it up and bit its head off.
Somebody threw a bat on stage, and I thought it was one of these toy bats. So I picked it up, bite the thing's head off, and suddenly everybody's freaking out because it's a real bat.
That moment sealed his image. To critics, he was depraved and dangerous. To fans, he was a rock star who didn't care about anyone's rules. And whether he meant it or not, the Prince of Darkness persona was born.
Did you know immediately, not having bitten into...
Well, I've bitten some pretty rough chicken on the road, you know, but...
After years of substance abuse, being kicked out of his own band, concerts involving bats, and tragedies in his life, Ozzy Osbourne did what very few artists ever manage. He reinvented himself completely. In the early 2000s, MTV, back when it still had a shred of dignity, launched a reality show called The Osbournes. The idea was simple. Put cameras in Ozzy's house and see what the madman does at home. The show made his entire family famous, especially his wife Sharon and 2 of their kids, Jack and Kelly. Their eldest daughter Amy refused to be part of it. It didn't feel scripted, at least not the way reality TV is today. MTV had already dabbled in the genre with The Real World, but The Osbournes was the first truly modern reality show. It completely broke the barrier between celebrity and everyday life. And what we saw was chaos, swearing, fights, family drama, accidents, and Ozzy, shuffling around confused, trying to work the remote control, trying to find the cat.
Where is the cat?
Or make the world's biggest cup of coffee. And somehow, it worked. I watched it as a kid, and I was fascinated by this bizarre, lovable dad. The public's perception of Ozzy shifted overnight. He wasn't just the Satanist who bit bats. He was a confused, kind, funny man with tics and quirks. And in a strange way, nothing ever humanized Ozzy more than that show. For the first time, people saw past the myth. A sick man, scarred by addiction, but still full of humor and heart. The Osbournes quickly became the most watched show on MTV and launched a new wave of reality TV. Without Ozzy, there would be no keeping up with the Kardashians. The difference is, heavy metal is something Ozzy can be proud of. The reality shows that followed, maybe less so. But whether we like it or not, MTV's gamble made him more famous than ever. Ozzy became a global pop culture figure, not just a crazy working-class kid from Birmingham. And speaking of Birmingham, I have to be honest, I didn't love it. This is the city that gave birth, directly or indirectly, to all the music I love. And yet, walking around it felt empty, unkempt, full of trash, and it was surprisingly hard to find a decent pub downtown. It was chilly outside, but most of the pubs in the center were overheated saunas. No AC, no ventilation. It took a while before we found a corner we could actually breathe in. That said, the old center is charming, small but cared for, and finding the Black Sabbath plaques, with the band's history engraved, was awesome. This city is really proud of Ozzy and Black Sabbath, and it shows. And speaking of shows, it was time to make our way to Villa Park. After a questionable English breakfast, it was finally time for the concert. There were plenty of big names on stage before Ozzy. Some jammed together, others just came out with their own bands. They played both original songs and covers. Metallica played last with the longer set. And then, it was time. The rumors said Ozzy would sit on a throne while others sang for him, that he wouldn't even be able to perform. But when he came out, he gave everything he had left. He was visibly emotional, and so was the crowd. Everyone felt it. This was the last time Ozzy Osbourne would ever stand on a stage. He played 5 songs in total, 4 classics from his debut solo album, and the most emotional song of the night, Mama, I'm Coming Home. Onions were being cut left and right. After a short break, he came back, this time with Black Sabbath. Emotional, vulnerable, clearly in pain, but still full of life. 17 days later, he was gone. I didn't film much. I wanted to just live the moment, but it was unforgettable. Leaving the stadium was chaos. No taxis, no Ubers. We ended up walking nearly an hour through Birmingham's roughest neighborhoods back to the city center. But none of that mattered, because we had just seen the Prince of Darkness take his final bow. Ozzy Osbourne was never a Satanist. He was in fact a gentle and religious man, from his childhood to his very last days. And despite the nickname the Prince of Darkness,
But I've been the Prince of Darkness since 1979.
every musician who ever worked with him says the same thing. He was the kindest, funniest, most generous person they'd ever met. Metallica only became Metallica after Ozzy took them on tour in the 80s, giving them their first real break.
Ozzy and obviously Sharon, they were kind enough to take us out and give us that shot, and we were out playing arenas in America.
It was moving to see them there, honoring the man who had opened that door for them. And there are countless similar stories. Artists remembering how Ozzy believed in them when their careers were just starting. Through Black Sabbath, through his solo career, even through his reality show, he brought laughter. He brought light, and his final concert raised millions, all of which he donated to a children's hospital and Parkinson's research. Of course, there were plenty of wild mistakes along the way. The substances, the scandals. Sharon definitely wasn't the luckiest woman in those years.
He lunged on me and, got me down to the floor and started strangling me.
But to his audience, and to the musicians who knew him best, Ozzy Osbourne was never a creature of darkness. He was the opposite, a generous legend, a true entertainer, and one of the funniest madmen who ever lived.
I just have fun, life's fun, and I'll just get out there and give them a good time,